TNA Impact Wrestling, one of the stars of the show, Samoa Joe. First, just growing up, what was it like for you? Were you active in sports? What was the whole thing?
It was an interesting childhood, to say the least. My parents owned the largest Polynesian dance troupe in the United States. We toured nationally and internationally, so I've spent the majority of my life on the road since I was 5. And the transition to the road lifestyle in pro wrestling made it a lot easier. I knew what to expect. But leading to that, dance and drumming, being part of that show for so long through my teenage years, heavily involved in judo and sport competition, and eventually that led me to professional wrestling.
So you were actually involved in the performance?
Yes.
With the dancing and everything, right?
Yeah, my father didn't really believe in daycare. He was a strong proponent of the family that works together stays together. So me and my 4 brothers and 2 sisters, we were all involved in the show since we could walk, and one way or another. And so we all stayed on the road with our parents.
Judo, great agility, helps the agility.
Absolutely, core balance, strength. Inertia, technique. It's a sweet and subtle science. Yet it's all things and nothing at the same time. It's a very it's a fun martial art. I highly recommend it to a lot of people. It's in the same vein of jiu-jitsu, and the precursor to it actually. And it's just it really prepared me for this career.
Also, dancing.
Oh, absolutely.
Can help you as well, and that's curious.
I think it's funny. The ability to have rhythm and some of the movement involved in dance, especially in Polynesian dancing. It's a very masculine, rough style. It's supposed to simulate what warriors would do before they go into battle. So there is a very there's also a martial art aspect to a lot of the dancing that you see, especially when you talk about the Maoris and the Samoans and stuff. And so that also kind of helped in pro wrestling.
Did you have to work with any of the knives or anything like that?
Absolutely. My father is one of the pioneers of Samoan fire knife dancing in the United States. Worked for Disney and was hired by Walt Disney for several years as in the Employee Hall of Fame over there. And we all learned to do it. And it's funny, you don't think about growing up and getting 3rd-degree burns before you're 16 years old, but in our family it was kind of a common occurrence, so it wasn't a big deal.
Was that out in California?
Yes.
And then it's ironic now you're at Universal Studios, which is not far from Disney here in Orlando.
Yeah, not at all. And it's funny, every once in a while we'll get back out to California, and my pop, we'll take the kids now out to Disneyland, and he still walks around like he owns a joint. We never we don't wait any lines there. It's kind of funny. I kind of told him, Pop, it's been a good 35 years since you worked here, but I built this place. That's my
So Walt Disney has company, right? So that's interesting, because I never knew that part of it, that you guys actually worked at Disney.
Absolutely. I remember my childhood. My father doubled. We had a large family, and he worked real hard. So he'd get up at 5. He was an airline mechanic for Western Airlines at the time, and he'd work from 5 to 4, and then he'd drive straight from LAX down to Anaheim, California to Disneyland. And he'd work 6 shows a night, come home at 10, kiss us, and we spent weekends with him because that's when we were doing weekend shows. So that's kind of how our day went.
But how was that like for you? Because you're at Disney, at Disneyland, the original, and funny, for a kid,
when you grow up being at Disneyland, it loses its childlike appeal very quickly. And especially since most of the time you're in the back and you're kind of in the workings of things backstage. And it's very fun. And obviously it made a great babysitter when he did have to take us along to work with him. But I'm pretty sure there's still some vandalism here or there somewhere in Disney that I made when I was a kid. So.
The judo aspect of it, was there aspirations for you to go Olympics, try that route as far as trying to get that level?
It's funny, when you grow up in a family environment where your parents are your boss, and as well as your parent, it's a really stressful situation. Because there is really no delineation between work and home. It's all one and the same. So judo was kind of my outlet. And I used it for that. It was more about me having something I did myself away from my family, and I honestly, they didn't know until a couple years in that I was even involved. It was like, well, where are you going after the afternoons? Oh, nothing. Why you got bruises on the inside of your head? Oh, nothing, gonna fight. I'd make up any excuse, and it was funny when I finally told them, like, well, why don't you tell us? Well, because I didn't want you involved. And it's funny when you have you kind of have these parents who are involved in every aspect of your life and your work and your play and everything, and that was kind of my thing.
Did it set them back a little bit though?
No, not really. I mean, you know, we had a lot of martial artists in our family and people that were really close to my family that we knew. So I mean, it was always an environment that I grew up in. So it wasn't too much of a stretch for them to, you know, oh, okay, well, there you go, you know.
Well, see, did Mom and Dad want you guys to sort of take over the Polynesian dance entertainment aspect of it, or that was just something they were doing at the time, make a living, and not really passing the torch?
It was the show was a huge deal in our family, and you know, my brother actually he now runs an incarnation of it now, still in California, and you know, I think as we all grew up, they all wanted us involved in the show, and I think they wanted our lives centered around it. But you know, my father and my mother, as they got older, they retired, and as we got along in life, you know, we realized, you know, we enjoyed a lot of the experience and then, you know, the travel and what we got to do when we were kids, but at the same time, I think with the exception of my brother and maybe two of my brothers, most of us kind of went into different fields and did our own thing.
Well, you told them about the judo, and they were fine with that. When you say to them, oh, I'm getting involved in pro wrestling, what are their thoughts there?
I mean, I can honestly say it wasn't, it's funny, it wasn't that big of a surprise to them. Not from the aspect that, oh, you know, wow, you're into pro wrestling, or I was a tremendous pro wrestling fanatic as a kid. It was more of a surprise that, you know, I guess the best way to put it is, it wasn't a surprise that I went to a field where I was in front of people and entertained people. I mean, that was very natural. And as they saw my schedule and how I was traveling, what I was doing, I mean, they pretty much saw that it wasn't anything out of the ordinary of what I was doing since I was a kid. So they knew I knew what to expect, and they knew I could handle myself. I mean, in international settings and on the road by myself. So I mean, it really wasn't that huge of a deal, and they were very supportive. I mean, their only rule was, if you're going to do this, you make money at it, and if you're not, then you stop doing it. And so I quickly tried to make as much money as possible as soon as I could.